Welcome back to another episode of the Smylie Show. In the golf off season, it just keeps giving us more and more new storylines. There's all sorts of rumors rolling around on the live player front, and the topic du jour right now is the golf ball rollback. The USGA and the R&A, after a week of reporting that this was going to be announced, it was officially announced, and we have thoughts as in addition to the rest of the golf world and golf social media, Smylie. What we're just like top of the line takes on where we're at with this golf ball rollback.
I mean, it's kind of hilarious. So we thought that there was going to be a whole lot going on this offseason. You and I were kind of trying to find a plan of what are we going to talk about to keep our viewers and all of our listeners interested. And here we are every single week. We stay busy. We stay having to, keep up with all of the ever-changing things in the game. But, with it being this case in the rollback discussion and the bifurcation, all of those conversations, and this conversation's been probably going on for a year or two with the USGA and the R&A, and we see the PGA Tour not being particular getting on board with it right away. So there's a lot to get to for sure.
We have lots of thoughts on this, of course, and we will get to those shortly. But I feel like it's worth at least setting the table with a piece of sound from USGA CEO Mike Whan. This was posted on Twitter/X by the Friday Golf. But I think this is Mike Whan on a Golf Channel program, and he's just kind of talking about the ideology of the rollback. So let's listen and react to this piece of sound first.
Just point to Martin. I really feel the need to answer this because a lot of people have said to me, is this really about you guys wanting to bring certain courses back to the U.S. Open? I got to be honest with you, and I'm sure Martin would agree to this. We both have a folder of golf courses that we don't think we can play our highest amateur pro events at anymore for a lot of distance reasons or size of platform reasons. This change we're talking about, and Rich mentioned it earlier, is not significant enough for me to take courses out of that folder and back into the yes folder. It just isn't. And it's not going to stop us from slowly adding courses to that folder over the next 20 or 30 years. I had an argument with a player yesterday morning, and he said, no matter what change you make, we're just going to work with our launch monitors, our coaches, our strength training. We're going to get that back. It may take us a while, but we're going to get back any distance loss that you try to take away. And I said, I completely agree. I agree that in the next 15 or 20 years, we're probably going to be right back to the same distance we are today. But that will be considered a huge success and a win for the game and for Martin and I, because the difference to that in doing nothing is 15, 20, or 25 years from now, we're another 20 or 25 yards longer and creating a problem we really can't fix in a short or longer term. So, yeah, we didn't do this to put a blanket on distance forever. If you're a long player, you're still going to be a long player. If you want to pursue distance as an advantage as a player, you're going to be able to do that and be longer than others. We're just trying to slow the pace of that growth. And I wish I could tell you that this choice brings back thousands of courses that we can no longer play these elite amateur or professional events at. It simply won't. And I'm sorry for those courses to hear that. And so I wish it was about that, but it really isn't.
So that's interesting, Smylie. I mean, I think that we're hearing from a lot of really loud voices right now saying, this is too much, this is too much, this is too much. And Mike Whan's here saying, this probably isn't enough. I mean, what are your kind of big picture reactions to like the actual meat of the announcement that the USGA and the R&A made with regards to the ball rollback?
Yeah, no, I've had a chance to read up on it all a little bit more, familiarize myself kind of with what the USGA and the R&A is doing to the game of golf. And quite frankly, it makes sense, to me, what they are trying to do. I think there's a lot of players that are not for it, and I get it. But at the same time, I watch these players every week, and I see what they do to golf courses, and I watch what the golf ball does. And it needs a tweak. It needs just a little bit of that, just, come on back down to earth, because right now the golf ball is going a long way. And based on what they have been talking about too, it's only, first off, it goes into effect in 2028. It's not like it goes into effect next year. I mean, there's plenty of time to do a little bit of R&D on it as far as just your own practice, and then also working with your equipment company as well. But it's only supposed to change about 9 to 15 yards. And I think for the tour average has gone up 12 yards in the last 13 years. And it's supposed to only be 5 yards for just the amateur players. So shockingly, I'm surprised at how big of a mess this is on social media, but everybody on Twitter and Instagram is right about everything, and there's no chance they're wrong,
right.
because if a player that hits a drive that's an amateur that normally hits at 280 and hits at 270, it says, "Oh man, this dang golf ball, man! I swear I can't do anything right. I just can't stop hitting in the middle of the face and hitting it 5 yards shorter." It's I think it's a little. Basically, the way I interpret it, they're just putting the brakes on it. They're just they're going to try to put the brakes on this distance gain. And I think the biggest problem, and you and I kind of talked about, I'll let you kind of hit on this big thing, is how the club companies and the ball companies have been marketing towards distance. And so is the PGA Tour, so is the broadcast. Everybody wants to show up to a golf tournament and watch these players hit it to the moon and be like, man, I want to do that. And so there is a very cool, part about that as a kid, as a golf fan, as a viewer, to be able to see how far somebody can hit a golf ball, because it brings the athletic side to the sport. And, it's a skill and it's a talent. And some of these players, like for instance, Bryson DeChambeau, let's use him as an example. He's a player that was, he was always pretty long. I wouldn't call him just elite long, but the dude practiced and practiced and practiced to make long driving a skill. And that is exactly what Mike Wan kind of referenced to in that argument he had with a player. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go and work and work and work and get back and catch up those yards that I lost in the golf ball. And great. That's he was fine with it. I agree too. So for those of you that are here that are have the pitchforks and wanting me to be upset about the rollback, I personally am not. I think I want to see a little bit more artistry in the game. I'm hoping. I assume the golf ball is going to spin a little more, because that's what you would expect for the ball to go shorter, which allows you to curve the golf ball more with irons. It plays a little bit more to creativity, and maybe you start to see a little bit more long irons instead of wedges that we see most weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, first of all, nobody's ever been wrong on the internet, and good luck trying to convince them of that. So this is, we live in perhaps the worst possible era in the history of the world to have this sort of thing come out. And people hate change, of course. But I think, in a way, we're sort of a victim of our own, whatever you want to call it, golf industrial complex, or just, marketing complex, whatever it is, because I look around and, first of all, it cracks me up to hear people say, like, this is the reason why I'm going to quit the game of golf. These people who are yelling on social media and everything. It's like, really? Because you're probably the same guy that, like, lost the ball and went into the woods last week and found some waterlogged top flight and said, like, well, it's a golf ball. Like, I'll play this, and we're good enough doing that. And now you're worried about a loss of 5 to 7 yards, right, on your drive. Like, I have trouble buying that. So, like, if I don't believe that people are going to quit the game, they're still going to play the game, then I look around at other sports that are, similar in a way. I look at, like, baseball or tennis, of, like, you still, you still have to have the ball to play the game. And maybe you're losing something at the margins in terms of, like, a marketing edge where, a Titleist can tell you their ball, spins this much less. And,
right,
Srixon can tell you their ball goes X amount of yards further and whatever. And so there's this battle that's going back and forth with the consumer where they're trying to decide which one of these things you want to select for. But at the end of the day, if you kind of remove all that and you're like, here's the limit, but you still got to buy the golf balls to play the game, I just don't think these manufacturers lose that much money long term, and people just develop their preferences for a golf ball manufacturer for whatever reason that is. And maybe part of that too is going to become, Smylie, edges in how you spin it, or the softness or feel you have in a golf ball. Like, maybe you buy a golf ball that's firmer if you like that sort of, feel around the greens, or, putting or whatever. Maybe you buy a golf ball that's softer. That's something that you like more than, it becomes sort of a feel, artistry type of thing. That would be a really cool outcome. But, right now with where we're at, I think that, yeah, and it is a little bit alarming to hear, Mike Wan say, that this isn't going to be enough. And what comes next. Maybe it's rolling back, certain clubs and this and that. And I don't know. What I know is I'm going to keep playing golf in whatever kind of form the equipment and the ball takes. If I have to move up a set of tees, I have to move up a set of tees. I'm getting old anyway. I don't like, the reaction that, I think initially it's like, man, if a lot of people drop from this game and stop spending money, and, it's kind of, it's the reason why people are probably here listening to the show and consuming the show. So I hope that they don't leave, but I think at the end of the day, you kind of come back to that place where it's like, it could just be a lot of people getting really mad at change on the internet, and that's sort of a fleeting thing. It'll go away,
Well, when the last time it went away, it was 2010 with the groove changes with the wedges.
Yeah.
That was a big deal, probably similar to this. It's, I've been using this wedge my entire career. I don't want to change into, what was it? Was it the U wedge, the V wedge, or like
it was square grooves? Yeah, square grooves. Yeah.
So we were going away from the square grooves. Is that what it was? Okay. Mm-hmm. Those were the best, though, because you could put it back in your stance. You could hit this low. I mean, it was when we talk about like the one couple stop and just like that immediate bite you'd get on a golf ball with pitching. Those were the days. I grew up with that wedge, and whew, man, could I spin it? So that's kind of this has happened before, is what I'm saying. There's precedent.
Well, and what I love about kind of what you're talking about, and what Mike Wan's talking about in this interaction he had with this player is, what does it mean if this thing changes? And it's like, what didn't go away? A lot of highly artistic wedge players who have found different ways to achieve their goals and score around the greens. I mean, shoot, we had Victor Hovland on this show talking about one method from Joe Mayo that's completely unique to like something else you might hear from Parker McLaughlin, and you hear Max Homa doing one thing and Jason Day doing the other thing. Like, there's still players who, all right, change my grooves. I'm going to find a way to achieve it because I'm going to work hard. I'm going to figure something out that is like my blood, sweat, and tears, instead of just someone showing up and handing me a wedge that has grooves that can spin the crap out of it, And I think that if that's what we see are, people finding ways to kind of work around this to still hit the ball far, and maybe even picking up a skill in the process, like, that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, trying to figure out the source of this outrage. And I feel like it'll pass.
It's changed a lot. I'll just kind of give you a little bit of my perspective of the experiences I've had on the PGA Tour and where my driving distance was. And I pulled this up because I was curious of where my driving ranks would have been in 2023. And in my rookie year, 2015 and 16, my driving distance was 299 yards. And that was 30th on tour.
Wow.
299. And today, that number would be 113.
Wow.
So my rookie year, 299, 30th on tour, 113th. The next year, my tour average was 304.6. So I gained 5.6 yards, and I moved up to 25th in the driving distance category. This year, that would have been 63rd. So there is a bit of a difference in 5 yards in the year 2023 from 304 to 299 still. But the point stands. I was in top 30 both years in driving distance, and underneath that 304 yard and 300 yard thresh mark on my rookie year. So I kind of looked back to that the other day. I was like, man, has the game changed in just 7 years? And and I really think it's just technology and being able to maximize your setup, and the mishits are better. You're able to maximize your technology. You're able to practice driving the ball far as a skill with the help of all of the devices that players have. And I look back to my first couple years on tour. I was one of the very few players that had one of the GC quads from Foresight. Everybody would come up to me and say, what is that thing? Because for the most part, a lot of the players had TrackMans. I would say over half. It wasn't every single player like you see on the range now, but people would come up to me and say, what is the quad you have on the ground, or what is that device? So, dude, I don't know, man. I put it next to my golf ball. I turn it on. I hit it. It tells me how far it goes. And that's all I need to know. And it seemed so simple. And I didn't know why anybody else wasn't using it. And now you see everybody use it on the range. You see them carrying it at practice rounds, trying to figure out how far the golf ball is going because it's so important. But man, that's just kind of my experience with the driving and where we're at today. I'm longer now than I was in 2015, 16, 17, and I attribute it all to technology. I don't think I'm necessarily that much stronger. I would argue that I probably had more speed. I probably swung the club faster in those years, but I would say that I'm a longer driver of the golf ball now because I think these shafts and the way these drivers kick now, and the golf ball in itself, I think it just all promotes to the golf ball going a little further.
Yeah, I think maybe part of it is a fear of the unknown in a way. It's like we've all, because as we've talked about, like there are numerous factors that go into the distance gains we've seen. One is, of course, the golf ball. The second is the equipment, the clubs we're using. The third is agronomy. Our course is playing firmer and faster. Course is not growing up the rough. Greens being firmer and faster. And the fourth is, physical growth and things like, workout routines, things like that, new levels of fitness, things that, like Mike Wan said, he's encouraging those types of things. So, if you think about the multiple puzzle pieces here, it's like we've all hit 3 woods off the tee. We know like about how far that goes. We like often it suits us better. We play better golf that way. Like
3 woods go too far nowadays, and players on tour, they can't get the 3 wood to not go too far.
And so it's like that's a thing that people can wrap their heads around. People play courses where the rough is up and they know it's more challenging. Sometimes they relish the challenge of that. I don't think people have like knowingly played bad golf balls. Like I'm sure people play golf balls that are older or something like that. And so it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around what's this experience going to be like. So I think that's why I say, like, I think when this thing happens, is most people are going to be like, oh, okay, that's not that bad. That's not that different, and just kind of get on with it. What I hope doesn't happen, and this is why, and I think you and I might disagree with this on this piece a little bit, is I ultimately would have been a fan of bifurcation. Like it would have been tricky to figure out where the cutoff line is. And if I'm like a kid growing up, and when do I flip over from the regular ball to the elite competition ball? But I fear that, does this cut out, young players or, or older players or women from playing a game because they're just frustrated with like their lack of ability to hit the ball as far as they want to. And ultimately, if you're looking at the charts they're putting in front of you, it may be, again, such a marginal piece of distance, it doesn't matter. But like there have been so many initiatives that have been supported by the USGA, forward tees, things like that. And I just wonder if, it's like you got to kind of relook at all that and push everything up a little bit so that these people who are coming to the game and trying to, wrap their head around loving it for the first time, now something's happening that at face value, at least, maybe not in terms of actual practice or experience, but at face value is like, well, that's a reason for me to not want to play the game because I do want to hit the ball far and I do want to have a chance to score, Yeah,
no, it makes sense. And it's all an amateur golfer's perception, right? I think they all go and get fitted for clubs and they want to see how far they're hitting it because they see how far, these PGA Tour players hit it. And if you're a young guy and you could see, I can hit my 7-iron the same distance as Rory McIlroy. Well, I mean, it's obviously not very much control on that, but but listen, yeah, right. So it's just the game is changing so much, and I was thinking about this. If you were guaranteed a US Open and I gave you the perfect plot of land, and I gave you a great architect, and you're guaranteed to have this thing, like it's perfect venue. And I was thinking, where would you have to start right now as far as how long the golf course has to be? And in my head, I was thinking, I feel like 8,000 would be your benchmark, right? When as a kid, if I played a course in the 7,000s, it was really long, and now 8,000 is the benchmark.
You have to look no further than the new PGA of America headquarters in Frisco, where Gil Hanse built that beast of a course that I think is hosting PGA championships in the future that is 8,000 plus yards tipped out. So I think that's right in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a way that architects now have to test the best players in the world. It's distance. And I think one of the coolest things we saw at the U.S. Open this past year at LACC was the 15th hole played 76 yards on Saturday. And I think that's the type of design and golf course really that just, this modern game, it's having to build so long. The way to test players is distance. And you're going to see more par threes that are 250 plus yards, 270 yards. And I can't tell you how much I hate that. I would much rather play a really tricky short iron par three than a 260 yard par three that has no life to it. That's the way you're having to test players because of the proximity game. And really it's how can you keep the players from not hitting it too close to the hole all of the time. And, it seems to me that's like the only way to do it is just distance right now, unless you have firm greens and rough and all the things that make a golf course challenging. But, there's so many places that don't have that to their disposal to make golf courses, play as tough as they need to. So distance is kind of like the only answer.
Yeah, and that's why I would, if I was trying to push back on Mike Wan, I'd love to look in that folder he speaks of courses that are outdated.
All those courses are booked up till 2070, though, for the U.S. Open.
That's right. To be fair, with the new anchor sites, it's not like there's a lot of wiggle room to wedge in there. But I guess I'm just curious because it's like, look at how well Harbor Town's held up. Now, right. Again, like the reason why it has is because of its agronomic advantages. It's like it's the terrain of the course and that sort of low country and the way the trees are set up, and it's a challenge for non-length reasons, right? And so that's why I'd just be curious to know, what are the courses that he's deeming unplayable and why is he deeming them unplayable? And I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with him on that. I'd just be curious to look at that roster and understand why, because I'm sure some of those it's like, well, why don't we give it a shot? And why don't we see if there's a way through agronomy for us to make it a tougher test, whether it's firming up the greens or growing rough in certain places, and just seeing what tools we have at our disposal to make it a sort of unique test that isn't all about length. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just curious because it's like there are a lot of short courses on tour that are tough tests, and, and they're still working.
Well, who's not going to give the rollback a chance?
Who's that?
That'd be Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour.
Ooh, yes,
it's kind of like a gift wrap present to the PGA Tour. It's like, you know what? Here's a freebie. Like, this one is a layup for you. You can't screw this up. All you have to do is not before the rollback, and there you go. You got one for the good guys and the players on the PGA Tour. But there's been, the top players, and Rory and Tiger, who are obviously the two of the faces of the PGA Tour. They've been for the rollback, and there's other players that are for it too. I think the players are frustrated that, like, why now? Why not back then? Why didn't we figure this out, a while back? We could have done something about the CCs of the driver. We could have looked at the forgiveness, of the faces of some of these drivers. I can't ever say forgiveness without saying forgiveness.
Say forgiveness or forgiveness? Forgiveness.
Just hit the ball. Good commercial. But that's where I'm kind of my head's at with this is, and I think a lot of people refer to our Adam Scott interview when we asked him just about how much the game has changed from when he started playing till where we're at now. And he said, these modern players, they grab the driver as much as they can because they know it's the easiest club in their bag to hit. It goes the straightest and it goes the longest. And the stats will tell all of these players. And I would say more than half of these tour players are using these statisticians to, and they tell them the further you hit it, the bigger advantage you have against your opponent. And that's, I guess, science. I don't know, but that's the bottom line right now. And they've invested in trying to hit it far. So I think there's been a lot of pushback from the players of, well, I've worked on this. This is now something that I believe is a strength of mine. Why are we rolling it back? But I think it's going to bring back the artistry in the game, hopefully a little bit where the ball curves a little bit more. And, the two of the things that they're going to be looking at as well. The USGA is the forgiveness of the drivers, like I just talked about, but also testing hot drivers more often than not to make sure that they're meeting up to standards, which I agree with as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the Adam Scott driver piece, I mean, to me, what he's saying there is not only an indictment of the driver, it's an indictment of, again, agronomy. Because look at Rory McIlroy's driving stats this last year, where like he's near the top, if not on the top of tour in total driving distance, but he's like maybe past 100 in driving accuracy. Yet, here he is, second ranked player in the world, in the conversation for, player of the year, all sort of stuff. And so it's like, why is that the case? Like, not only can he hit it, 300 zillion plus yards, but where the ball's landing and ending up, it must not be that difficult to score from that spot. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing as well as he is. So it's like, make it hard to hit the driver online. And then when you don't hit it online, penalize players for not hitting it online. And I, to me, I think it's kind of a twofold thing there. And I'm not sure why that's gone the way it's gone, whether, again, it's players, saying, we don't want a US Open-esque test every single week. Like, give us a little bit of relief here. But I mean, I think, in terms of the stats too, it's on the PGA Tour pushback, to be fair to the USGA and the R&A, it's like these conversations started years ago. And a lot of the data that the USGA sourced was like from the PGA Tour's own ShotLink data. So for the PGA Tour to say, this is disingenuous, this is the wrong answer, it's like, but how though? Because you have been a party to all these conversations the entire time. I just don't get it. I mean, I'm not like, the thing is, like, I understand all the sides. Like, there are, like everything in golf right now, there are a lot of really compelling arguments, and it's hard to parse out who's right. But I just wonder if this is just sort of something that is really upset about right now because it's another big breaking news story and people are yelling loudly about it. But we're just going to get to a point where we're like, oh, wait a second. Well, what's a lot more important was like, all our players going to live.
That's a bigger deal is obviously these guys are playing, that they're playing against each other more often than not, which seems to be we're not heading that way. So that's obviously a big issue that the tour is having to deal with and a lot of these players. And the last comment I'll have on the rollback is just about, we're not going to really know about the golf ball when these players start to test it. And it's when we start to hear their comments about that, whether the 9 to 15 yards that you lose with your driver, you're not supposed to really lose a ton of yardage from your 5-iron down. So it'll be based off the testing from these players. Like, are they going to be able to curve it more into greens, or are they able to control the spin with their wedges? And, how does it, is it still really good in the wind? There's just a lot of testing that goes on with new golf balls that these players do week in and week out. And when you have one that changes, as much as this one does, it's which isn't even that much. I'd actually like them to see get one event a year that they all play balata balls. That'd be fun to watch.
What I would encourage based on that is everybody out there listening, go do your own science experiment, because this past summer with all the rollback talk, I was like, you know what? I'd just be curious to go grab some old balls on eBay to see how it goes, and got some of the original Nike TW Tour accuracy balls. Teed one of those things up on Hope Valley on the 10th tee, and I hit a probably a 70-yard hook onto the driving range and just started keeling over laughing because it was so spinny. Like it like not like I hit some perfect tee shot, but I was just so unused to that amount of spin in the ball that, over the course of the round, you kind of get used to it and it's fun, but it's different. So if you're out there and you're like, I wonder what it would be like going back to, like, go eBay some balls, go get some old Tour Professional, 90s or something like that, and just, have some fun with it.
I did that with Ricky brought some of those golf balls out to one of the spring breaks that we played all together. And
Balata balls?
No, they weren't Balata. I think he had a couple of them maybe, and then he played with them. But it's in the 90s. Is that what you called it? I think it was some of those that we were playing with.
The Professional 90, the Professional 100 were Titleist's
I think it was the 90s.
It was the last precursor to the Pro V1 392, and it was released in 1994. And actually, I've heard that, and this is really interesting as a reference point, is that ball would not pass the testing standards that the USGA has put into place. So that's interesting. Like it's like we're talking about would not pass. Like that it might be. I don't know how like, you know, we can't know until we know.
Hold
but
on, like you're telling me that it goes too far?
Yeah, that it under the testing standards of the USGA, the professional 90.
Okay, somebody's lying in this then, because 9 to 15 yards is not going to be that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, I this is what I've heard from someone who worked in the ball manufacturing business for a number of years, and this could just be someone who has a vested interest in this and not rolling the ball back
going
and
around
trying
for
to
sure. I mean, these companies don't want to spend all this money on developing these new golf balls. I mean, shoot.
But to your point remains, like, play a professional 90, play a professional 100. Yeah. It's fun. It was a different golf ball.
My biggest complaint and issue with the golf world and is the marketing with golf is all these random big words that they use to try to bring in. And I'm not going to say them because I don't want to offend any company. I'm a company man myself. So, but you know all the dang words that are used to try to get you lured in to this bomb of a drive or bomb of a wedge or iron or a ball, whatever it is. But that's marketing. I understand that, but still it's kind of played into what the game has been trending towards, which is getting much longer.
Yeah, that's honestly in a sick way. I'm excited to see golf companies, all the people who work in marketing these companies, sweat a little bit. Try to sell me. It's like a sales exercise. Yeah, here's a 25-year-old ball.
What would be like a medium distance word that we can use? Like, come get this very average golf ball. Very
yeah, right. It's like, hand me a pin, sell this to me, make me believe this is a golf ball that's going to go far. Like, come on, right now, give me your pitch. You know, like that's what I am excited to see from these marketers.
Yeah. Who wants a tame golf ball? Right over here.
It's like a lukewarm golf ball. It's you know, medium giveness. Yeah. No dig at TaylorMade. Yeah.
It's like that new LaCroix flavors. It's like it was transported next to a truck of bananas.
Yeah. It's the Tour Pamplemousse ball. You know, just think of it like that. It's the essence of a good golf ball.
We need to shut up.
We were having entirely too much fun around because honestly, in the grand scheme of all the golf stories, this is the most benign one. So please let us have our fun. And we will. So that's all we got on the golf ball rollback today. I'm sure we'll have more. I'm sure there will be more twists and turns in the story, but that is today's show, and we'll be back here in the next couple of days, continuing to unpack all the big storylines in the golf world, not limited to the golf ball rollback and live rumors. So we appreciate you watching and listening, and we will talk to you back here soon.
I've actually watched a couple of episodes of y'all earlier. It just started popping up on my YouTube, so I was like, I'll check it out. And you guys have some good takes, so thanks for what you guys do. So I'm happy to come on. And
that is a stamp of approval from Mr. Victor Hovland.